100 years later to the date in 2008, the surviving family of Napoleon Hill Foundation wrote me a very similar letter of introduction like Hill got from Carnegie. And I got a Willy Wonka ticket to travel the world to write the Think and Grow Rich series with Shaun. You might know her, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Kiyosaki and Outwitting the Devil and things of this nature. So we've traveled the planet to meet the most powerful and influential people and tell their stories in books and film.
It's time for another episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show, a podcast where I connect you with thought leaders from across the globe, digging into some of my favorite topics like personal development, marketing, spirituality, and pretty much any other shiny object that happens to catch my attention. Today, my special guest is the one and only Greg Reid, and we're going to be discussing his book, 3 Feet from Gold, Turn Your Obstacles into Opportunities, which is now available in an updated and expanded anniversary edition. Greg, it's a great honor. Welcome to the show.
And then the crowds go wild. By the way, everyone that's new here is that his voice off camera is a little bit different. He's got that DJ voice as soon as he came on.
Yeah, you put me in front of the microphone. I get excited.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, guys, gals, and freaky pals, gather around, listen to the now sounds.
Yeah, you should have heard me back in the day when I worked in the movie theater. I would announce over the loudspeaker all the shows that we were seating for. I have to continue that on in this stage of my life. But we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about you, Greg. So let's kick off our conversation with a bit of what we might call the Greg Reid origin story. So for the listeners, the viewers who are encountering you for the first time today, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do we need to know about you?
Oh, there you go. Hi, everyone. My name is Greg, a regular cat here in San Diego, California, little beach town community called Carlsbad. For those of you who are not familiar with my work, don't feel bad. I'm not very popular at home either, so it works out good. I've been published in about 100 books, 45 languages around the world, make feature films, and have been listed in Forbes, Inc., and Entrepreneur as a top 10 speaker for around the world.
And in terms of if I walked up to you on the street and said, hey, Greg, it's nice to meet you. What do you do? How would you self-identify yourself? You know, you're an entrepreneur, you're a coach, you're an author. What's the hat you tend to wear when people ask you about what you do?
Well, first of all, I'd be in flip-flops, shorts, and my skateboard, because again, I live in a beach town in California, and I probably refer to as Colt's dad. So my son is 8 years old. He's kind of like the highlight of my career. He's the famous kid. So, you know, I probably go in with that.
And I'd love to hear a little bit about how you first encountered the teachings of Napoleon Hill. I feel like when people encounter that, it can often be life-shifting, career trajectory changing. So when did you first come across that, and how did that bring some shifts into your life?
Well, by the way, everyone, he's just setting me up like on a T-ball for these questions. I love this. So back in 1908, there was an aspiring magazine reporter named Napoleon Hill. He gained access to the richest guy in the world, Andrew Carnegie, and basically was sent on a mission to meet his friends to write the first ever formula for success, the blueprint of personal development called Think and Grow Rich. 100 years later to the date in 2008, the surviving family of Napoleon Hill Foundation wrote me a very similar letter of introduction like Hill got from Carnegie. And I got a Willy Wonka ticket to travel the world to write the Think and Grow Rich series with Shaun. You might know her, who wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad with Kiyosaki and Outwitting the Devil and things of this nature. So we've traveled the planet to meet the most powerful and influential people and tell their stories in books and film.
Well, that's one of the things that I found really fascinating is, on the one hand, it's an allegory, it's a fable sort of journey, but yet it's also your journey of talking to these people and discovering these things. So it was kind of trippy to be like, wow, how much of this is real and how much of this is creative license? I was never quite sure where that line ended.
Yeah, well, he's referring to a book called Think and Grow Rich, 3 Feet from Gold. We just released our 12th year anniversary through Sound Wisdom Books, a great publishing company. And what's really neat about that one, it's all about the story that most people give up 3 feet away from their vein of gold. First, there's a dream, then there's a challenge, and then comes victory. Unfortunately, most people quit in the challenging times. And we wrote this book in a parable, and they used me as one of the main characters. And by the way, I'm a real jerk the first 3 chapters. You grow to like me. So a lot of that is based on real life examples of the way I used to be in my 20s. And then came to understand that life isn't about ego and the projection that we put out to society. It's how we truly are as a human inside. And that person, I think, is unveiled by the end of the book.
Well, and in terms of the life of this book, I'm always intrigued when something gets to a place where it hits a milestone of like a decade, or it's time for an updated and expanded edition. I'd love to hear a little bit about how did you use, how are people impacted by that first edition of the book? Clearly a book that's had this much exposure and this much traction, it's impacted people's lives.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I mean, it's spectacular. I still get calls, texts, emails from people all around the world saying that this book changed their life or saved their life or things of this nature. And when you get into this industry of personal development, you say, if I could just impact one person's life, I've done my job. Well, when you've done that to millions of people, it is unbelievably spectacular, but it's also very humbling along that quest. But here's a quick little story. One of the favorite people I interviewed was a guy named Jack Mates, who founded a company called Velcro. And I said, how did you sell 5 billion people Velcro? And he says, we never did. We just sold 5 people. The head of automotive, aerospace, fashion, medical, they found the application brought to the world. He said, stop trying to sell everyone and just understand the power of leverage. So when we came out with this book, we were turned down by every publisher in New York City. No one wanted to do this project. So Sharon Lecter opened up the doors of opportunity and reached out to the founder of Barnes and Noble bookstores, where we had a meeting with them, and they realized that they would do this as the first ever joint venture where there was no advance, but they would publish us directly through their sister company. Now, here's the big question. Who's got a bigger email list, me or Barnes and Noble? And by doing that joint venture, we were on every bookshelf in the world and opened up the opportunities where more people get a chance to get their eyeballs on us and impact many, many lives.
Well, and I think you just kind of pulled back the curtain and exposed one of the interesting things about books that have a long tail life cycle, books that are really popular and impact lots of people. Out of the gate, most authors see a lot of rejections. It wasn't like everybody was just lining up to say, here's a contract, please sign. Talk to us a little bit more about that journey in terms of, getting those rejection letters and kind of having the faith to keep moving forward. And obviously this is some of what is detailed in the story we read in the book. I guess my question would be, how did that stretch and grow you as you walked through that process?
Well, the funny thing about personal growth is that pesky growth part, right? So that's part of the journey, but I'm so used to it. So the first book I ever did, 1 out of 100, it was called The Millionaire Mentor. And I was turned down by 268 publishers, agents, and printers in a row. The 269th one said, we'll do your book, but change the title, the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I trusted them because I really was not a great writer, still not today. And what happened is I understood the power of a ghostwriter, these editors that could take my words and craft in a way people would want to see. So when we came to 3 Feet from Gold, I didn't take it personally. I just went, all right, we're back to that situation again. So Sharon breathed some life into it. And then we got an amazing ghostwriter, Greg Tobin, that came in, and he did the same thing and became what it is, the phenomenon today. Look, I'm going to be really peel the onion. There's like no Santa Claus. An author is a person whose name goes on a book, and a writer is the person who wrote the book. They're usually 2 different people. The fact is, I cannot really read. I cannot write. I'm dyslexic. Play me words with friends. You'll win every time. But I understood the power of work your strengths and hire your weaknesses. So what I do is I got the gift of gab, where I can tell a mean story, but these people have a way to craft it in a way that people would want to sit down and open up a book and actually get it from the pages in a way that I could just not deliver.
Well, and one of the things I kept thinking about as I was going through the book, I think back of Napoleon Hill's journey in the time frame when Think and Grow Rich came out and the impact it had during a very dark time in the American economy. I think of back in 2008 when you were working on the original edition of this. It was a very dark time in the American economy. And here we are with this 10th anniversary edition. We're also entering a very dark time in the American economy. And so the one thought I kept thinking was, who is this book for? So, in terms of, there's this cycle where there seems to be these books that come to the surface that are exactly the message that people need to move forward in learning how to recreate themselves, so to speak, in a difficult season, in a liminal space. Who would you like to pick up this book in this season we're in right now? And what can they expect? How do you think it's going to impact and change them?
Well, understand this, that we all have greatness inside of us, right? Just like Les Brown says, but it's time to bring that greatness in the world. One of the things that Napoleon Hill talked about in Think and Grow Rich, his biggest chapter was the 6 ghosts of fear. And I believe the fears he wrote about are not true today. That's just my belief system, because it was the fear of loss of love, fear of old age, fear of, poverty. I don't think that's a big fear. I think it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of pain. The big one is the fear of judgment, fear of criticism. That's the number one fear. If I was walking down the street in Arkansas and I tripped on a curb, the first thing I'd do is look up to see who saw me, even though I don't know anyone in Arkansas. Well, it's the same thing. Well, guess what? People aren't thinking about us right now because they're dealing with their own situations. There's a bumper sticker at Disneyland that says, "What would you do if you couldn't fail?" The big question is, what would you do the moment you stop worrying about what people thought? Would you start that business? Would you ask someone out for a date? Right now is that perfect example, because no one's looking inside your window. They're dealing in their own situations. Start that business, start that idea. If you got an idea for a book or a movie or a play, this is the most ideal, perfect reset for people to stop worrying about judgment and start stepping into that faith and taking action like they never could before.
Well, and once somebody gets through the book, they get into kind of the take action section in the latter part of the journey. One of the key things we get introduced there, and actually we learn about this throughout the story too, is this success equation, where we bring together our passion, our talent, our associations, action steps we can take, combine that with our faith, and it gives us a path to start moving forward on. But in terms of bringing that together, whether we're talking about your own journey and experience, or as you've been coaching and training others, where do people tend to get stuck when they're in that place of putting it into action? I think fear is definitely one place they might get stuck, but in terms of trusting what they're feeling with their passion, their talent, their associations, what gets them bogged down?
Yeah, getting input from people that don't know what the heck they're talking about. And the biggest takeaway from 30 Feet from Goal for me was successful people seek counsel and failures listen to opinion. Opinion is based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, inexperience, like all your family friends who've never done what you want to do. Counsel is based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. People have paved the way. So if I went to my family friends and say, I'm going to write a best-selling book, trust me, they're going to talk me out of it. One, they've never written a best-selling book, and they know I got a D in English and can't spell. If I go to Jack Canfield, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, and say, Jack, I want to write a book, he'll say, sit down. Here's what you need to know, and give me a blueprint, a roadmap based on experience, knowledge, and wisdom. If we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignoring people's opinion, that's the day your life would change. Surround yourself with people that are getting the results that you want for yourself. Here's a new word, today. For example, if I wanted to open up a brand new restaurant chain, my buddy's the guy who started, Chuck E. Cheese, but I don't think I'd go to him because he did it 40 years ago. I'd say, who's doing Five Guys or In-N-Out, and find out what they're doing today, ask them for counsel and start applying it. If we surround ourselves with people that are doing what we want, eventually we add our own spin, we do it for ourselves.
Well, and once somebody gets to the process of writing their success equation, I think people can do that without taking on a whole lot of risk. But a next level would be to insert yourself into some sort of a mastermind group. And I think that's one of the most brilliant things we get out of a lot of Napoleon Hill's teachings. And one of the things that's really going to put us into a place where our progress skyrockets to a whole new level. But I think it scares the crap out of people too, in terms of finding a group of people that can sharpen you and that you have to be vulnerable with. So any wisdom or guidance on doing mastermind groups well?
100%. And surround yourself with people you have respect for, not people you have influence over. That's rule number one. So imagine that. I'm going to say it again. Surround yourself with people you have respect for, not people you have influence over. And so for myself, I have many mastermind groups, and some I run and host, and others that I participate with my peers, and they're absolutely amazing. In fact, recently I started an organization, it's brand new, called the Mastermind Association. You go to mastermindassociation.com, and it's the first ever Robert's Rules version of how to run, host, and maintain a certified mastermind group. Because what happens is people sit there and they sell folks at the back of a room, join my mastermind group. And then they sell them for 25 grand. You go in someone's living room, they sit in a semicircle, and a guy just sells you crap all day. That's a mini seminar. That's not a mastermind group. A mastermind group is when you get selfless, where you come together as a collective whole, get out of yourself and say, look, there's a situation. And as a collective, you work on that. Then one person sits in the opportunity chair and says, look, here's my situation. And then people ask clarifying questions. You don't walk into a doctor's office and say, give me drugs. They ask clarifying questions so they can diagnose you. Then after that's done, then they offer counsel, wisdom, mentorship, so you can document it and start applying it. That's how a mastermind is run. So we created the first ever formula and system for people to follow. In fact, I recommend everyone go check it out. It's called mastermindassociation.com. Trust me, it literally will take you through the blueprint so that you can help yourself and then help those around you. Just like the oxygen mask in a flight, you got to fill your own cup first and then feed the world with what flows over.
Well, Greg, let's get back to the book for just a moment. In terms of, say, the reader's journey with 3 Feet from Gold, if they only have one big takeaway or one big piece of information that they carry forward, what's that one thing you want to make sure every single reader takes from the book?
Seek counsel, not opinion, number one. And door number two would be, probably my favorite story is Evander Holyfield, the boxing legend. He was a poet and a philosopher, a wordsmith. Did not see that coming. And I asked him, I go, how did you win more heavyweight championships than anyone in history? And he pulled me aside and said, I just have a higher standard. So what do you mean? He goes, well, in sports, I showed up early, I left late, I invented exercises, I had a higher standard, and I won more championships. I said, but didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah, it hurts. But when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain. You don't focus on the blows. As soon as you do, you end up on your back knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, and then they wonder why they never become a champion. And he pulled me in tight, in the Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He says, you know what the funny thing is? He says, when you do win the championship, he says, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise your hand in victory and the guy puts a big shiny belt around your waist. And at that moment, and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room will have every bruise and every excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard. Right now is the perfect time to get started, to lay a foundation for a higher standard so you can have a championship in your own life as well.
Well, Greg, I know that you do more than just put together enjoyable books. So we'd love to hear about some of the other amazing things you have going on in terms of your business, your coaching. What are some of the things I haven't asked you about yet today?
Well, I've never been a coach. It's one of those things. I don't have the skill set for that. I have zero attention span, and nor do I want to hear someone what they had for dinner or they're fighting with their wife. So it doesn't flow into my society at all. I'm more of an action-taking guy. And so if I think about something, I do it. Recently, I had a chance to interview the founder of a nonprofit called Make-A-Wish Foundation. And I asked him a question. I says, what was your wish? And he goes, what do you mean? Well, you're the founder of Make-A-Wish. What'd you want? He says, no one asked me. I says, well, I'll grant your wish, anything you want. He says, I just want my story to be told so my grandkids will know I did something. So he signed over his life rights, and I said, I'll make it into a major feature film, but just know I've never made a movie. He trusted me, and it took 6 years and millions of dollars, and we made the actual ballad for the Oscars this last year, and we're trending worldwide on Netflix right now. You can watch it for free, and it's called Wish Man. And I realized the biggest thing that holds people back is they don't ask the right questions. And they let something called the bad case of the one size stop them. And that means I'm going to take action once I get the big break or once I have the knowledge. The best time to take action is when we get off our big butt. And not the one you're sitting on, but when we sit there and say, I'd go do that, but. And it's that butt that holds us back. And the thing that usually is holding that butt in place is that fear of criticism. What would we do if we started applying all the wisdom and knowledge and information that we already know today? You need another book and motivational seminar like a hole in the head. What we need to do is start applying what we already know. The fact is, right now, like Les Brown says, you do have greatness. It's time to dust that off and bring it to the world.
Well, besides Think and Grow Rich and 3 Feet from Gold, give me one or two other books that you would recommend for people to read that are going to change their life.
Well, one that I didn't write, Jim Stovall did. It's called The Ultimate Gift. Oh my gosh. Great book. Great movie as well. So I recommend that one. There's so many out there. My favorite books that I've been part of is Stickability, 3 Feet from Gold. Bob Proctor and I did a book called Thoughts Are Things together. And we realized, we interviewed Holocaust survivors to the people that, started JetBlue Airlines, the UGG boots and all this stuff. And we realized that thoughts are not things. It's thoughts backed by action become things. The science has proven we have 64,000 thoughts a day. And most of them are called ants, automatic negative thoughts. The reptilian part of your brain protecting you to be safe. So if thoughts were things, the majority were negative, then everything would be chaos in our life. We'd actually hit that, bicyclist that cut us off in the road. We didn't do that. Only it's our actions become our realities. So what I'm saying now is just sit down while we have this quiet time to start realizing what we're going to take action toward when the veil is lifted. The fact of the matter is that you've got an idea for a movie or a book or entrepreneurial spirit. Don't take it to your grave. This is the time to start laying that foundation. And you don't need money, folks. Surround yourself with people that play at something you'd work at. Work your strengths, hide your weaknesses. For example, I cannot write, I cannot read, I cannot spell. So I found great ghostwriters that can't sell, can't promote, can't get on stage. It's like chocolate and peanut butter. We come together and here we are.
Well, and with everything you've shared, Greg, clearly you've invested a lot of time in interviewing people, getting inside their heads, working to understand them. I'm curious, what's driven that curiosity? Because I'm somebody who's driven to interview authors. I've interviewed probably 600-700 authors at this point. What has driven you to continue to get into the minds of great leaders and try to understand them?
I'm a student. That's it. Look, trust me, there's no guru guy here. I'm just a student. And all I do is I learn something and I'm passing it on as I do it. That's it. And luckily, a lot of people like what we have to say because we're given real life practical stuff. Look, I'll give you a great little aha, 2 of them if you want, but one for sure. What if God and the universe granted every wish and every prayer, but we didn't like the packaging, so we sent it away? And we sat there and said, God, I need $100. Please lower it $100. Guy pulls up in a pickup truck. It's full of aluminum cans and says, they're all yours. Cash them in. I'm running late for a meeting. I can't take them with me. Say, I don't want those stinky things. Well, I asked and I prayed. It was delivered. But I didn't like the packaging, so I sent it on its merry way. What does that tell our God and universe next time we ask for another thing? So be careful what we ask for because we might just get it. And then this is the single greatest aha I've ever had of every book I've ever done, and this is it. CPC. If people follow this, will change your life forever. CPC. Clues, patterns, choices. And it works like this. Accountability and responsibility for every single thing that happens in our life. I go out on a first date. She's 20 minutes late. There's a clue. Second, third, fourth date. She's 20 minutes late each time. There's a pattern. Now it's my choice to deal with it, adjust it, break up with her, whatever, but it's not her fault. She's just late. That's who she is. It's about accountability and responsibility, not trying to change people. So how many times have we seen someone who's got a bad reputation in business? They cheat when you're a friend. You do business with them. You have a bad experience and you're mad at that person. You saw a clue pattern, but you made that choice. It'd be the same thing as watching a rattlesnake rattle, bite your sister, and then you go to pet it and you're mad because it bit you as well. It's about accountability and responsibility. And we start applying this to our lives. To trust me, you'll start weeding through people very, very quick and only surround yourself with golden gems.
And Greg, for the listeners, the viewers who'd like to connect with you, find out more about all the things you have going on, where are some of the places we can come hang out with you on the web?
Yeah, it's interesting. Right now, if you go to secretknock.co, you can learn all about Secret Knock, door number 1. And door number 2 is just go to Instagram, Greg S. Reid. And everyone that direct messages me, I respond personally. No one filters that one. The only thing is I do is don't ask me about the wife and kids and the weather and what you ate for dinner. But if you say, hey, give me a great business tool or business book or something like that, I can, if there's a resource, I promise you I'll get back to you right away.
And like we do with every episode, we'll have detailed links in the show notes, places where you can connect with Greg and pick up your own copy of the book. It's time to bring this episode of the Shaun Tabatt Show to a close. Many thanks for being a part of my conversation with Greg Reid. Once again, our book today was 3 Feet from Gold, Turn Your Obstacles into Opportunities. Again, if you want to connect with Greg and find out more, a great place to start is the website he just gave us. Once again, that is secretknock.co. And Greg, I just want to say thanks so much for sharing with us today. It's been a great pleasure and an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, and I look forward to getting our haircuts together again. See you later.